The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
Hola, very warm welcome to the VAR Show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to continue the theme of interviews, and we have the former manager of Ljungberg, former assistant manager of Mumbi City FC, and the former manager of Laos national team, Mr. Steve Darby. So, for those who do not know, Mr. Stephen David Darby is an English football coach and former player. He is well known throughout Asia as a pundit for ESPN Star Sports. You might have seen him there. So, without wasting much time, I would like to thank Steve for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to our show, and I would like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing during this pandemic period?
Well, we're in lockdown in UK. I'm in Liverpool in UK. Amazingly, 35,000 people have died. So we take the lockdown seriously. Though, in a sense, it hasn't been too bad. I've been doing lots of reading, lots of writing for articles, podcasts like this. Yesterday was China, today Nepal, a place I haven't visited actually. And watching lots of Netflix, Michael Jordan's Last Dance, the English game. So been doing, in a sense, many of the things I should have been doing but didn't do. Now I've had time to do them because I have no choice. We're locked in.
Okay, now we'll get to a more lighter topic, that is football. And I would like to ask you, you have traveled, you're very well traveled in terms of your coaching career. How diverse are the footballing cultures in the many places you have been to?
Well, massive differences. And that usually dictated by the country as well. You've got massive differences in wealth when I worked in the Middle East and China to an extent, and Australia. Other extremes, I've worked in countries where poverty is genuine, such as Laos, Vietnam, and India. In particular, I saw some of the most horrific poverty things there, which amazed me because I also saw some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I found that absolutely fascinating, that you have this incredible wealth of the Bollywoods and the cricketers and the businessmen. And then you have poverty in the streets, literally within view of each other. I've got no answer, but it just shocked me, to be honest. Also, you've got difference. When you have the difference in the poverty of the country or the wealth of the country, the biggest thing as well is usually facilities. Some of the top class facilities I've used in Australia, in China, but then you come to some of the other places where you're literally training on places where there's cows on the field. Particularly in India, that was the case with the cow being sacred. We couldn't get it off. And I had the same problem in Vietnam where sometimes there was water buffaloes on the pitch, and you don't get the water buffalo off because they just don't move. And only one person can make you move. That's the water buffalo man. And if you didn't get him to pay him to get the buffalo off the pitch, you couldn't train. So and you get other things like crowds. We had crowds in Malaysia of 100,000, and then Laos you might have had 100 at a game sometimes. So it's just massive differences, and it makes me laugh when I have lots of people from England and to extent Australia writing to me, can I get a job in Asia? And I say, well, you can't say Asia. It's huge. It just might not 50 odd different countries. I said, it's just not one generic thing. And I also tell them as well to be realistic. I have people writing to me saying, oh, I've worked at Stoke under-13s academy. I'm ready for the J League. Well, you're not ready for the J League. The J League is a top-class, world-class league. Other blokes writing to me saying, oh, I've done 4 years at someone's reserves, in Darlington Reserves. I fancy a go at an Asian national team. Well, so what? You might fancy it, but you might be able to go and buy a ticket, but you won't be working with them because it's a high level. No matter what you're talking about, there's some. I've had lads who've worked in Nepal. Mates of mine, Steve Constantine, Gary Phillips, and they said, there's some really, really good footballers there. I know there's a very good footballer working in Indonesia at the moment. Is it Rohit?
Rohit.
He's doing a really good job. I've seen him on TV a lot, and I thought he was Indian at first with the name, but then I did a little bit of checking, and I saw he's from Nepal, and I thought, what a top player. So when there's one top player, there's usually 4 or 5 more who haven't been able to make the leap.
Exactly, that's the case. So now we'll talk a little bit of Indian football. You have been involved in Indian football quite a lot with Mohun Bagan, Mumbai City, to name a few. How is the footballing culture in India?
Well, I've been to India on 4 separate occasions for work, 4 different occasions. I'll start with the best first. The best was the ISL with Mumbai. Super professional, well organised, intelligent administrators. I had top-class accountants working. Ranbir Kapoor, who I'm sure you know, I never knew. I'd never heard of him because I'm not a Bollywood fan, Ranbir Kapoor was the owner and a great bloke. Genuinely, sincerely loved the football. So that was a real pleasure to work with. Work with top-class players, international Indians, and internationals abroad, such as Nikolas Anelka, Manuel, Friedriche, Robert Pires was on the opposition, Zico was coaching. Different class. I spent a month in Manipur, which was fascinating. I was there basically. They'd selected a group of about 30-odd youth players, and they said, can you help them in this 1 month, help them become professionals? So we did a month of professional work, and quite a few then went on to play in the I-League, and a couple went on to play in the ISL. Not everyone makes it. That's the real work. That's the same in England, in Italy, everywhere. But some of these lads made it. Hopefully, and it was a really, really good government-run initiative in an area where it was extreme poverty, but they had a FIFA pitch in the middle of this poverty, which is fantastic because they hadn't spent the FIFA money badly. I know, everyone knows. A lot of the money that FIFA gives and AFC gives is corrupted. And people steal it, administrators steal it, it goes on. Anyone says it doesn't go on is a fool. It is going on. But in this case, in Manipur, they had actually delivered from the money. And it was a magnificent gesture by the government, by the Football Association. And that's where the Indian women's national team is really the Manipur national state team. So that was another great time. And did the media, ESPN. I did a year on the ISL, which that was a great life because, as you know, the Indian media is a huge machine. I did not know how big it was, and I learned then how big Bollywood is. And I got to like Bollywood, Ranbir Kapoor, and I ended up doing the choreography for a film called Student of the Year. I don't know if you've seen it. I did the football choreography.
Okay.
And it was so difficult because we were smashing lads who were actors, but they couldn't play. So what they had to do was they had to film my feet kicking a ball and film their upper body and edit them together. So that was a huge experience working in the media in India. And I also worked in the I-League, which wasn't the best time in the world I've had. I've got to be honest. I was in Mohun Bagan in Calcutta. And I'm trying to be polite here. From the minute I arrived in Calcutta, I felt I was being ripped off by everybody. The taxi driver, the shops, everybody wanted money. I went to Manipur, that didn't happen. Went to Mumbai, that didn't happen. But this was happening all the time in Calcutta. And also the club, it was like a political machine where I was found out later, the sponsors brought me in. Certain committee men didn't want me in, they wanted their own person in. They wanted a local in, sadly because they could manipulate the local lad. And I understand that because he's got to live there forever, I haven't. So you had, half the club wanting you out from the minute you walked in. And I also then discovered as well about the caste system, which I had read about, obviously. But when I saw the caste system in action, I thought it was appalling. So that was, the other extreme. But the reality is, to me, India is 22 different countries. And how it hasn't exploded into a war, I don't know. Because, the Middle East has exploded into a war. Yugoslavia did the same thing. But India just seems to get by. And manages. I don't know how, but it's a fascinating place. And obviously, I'd love to go to Nepal at some stage. I mean, obviously, Everest is the thing everyone talks about, though I have absolutely zero plan of trying to climb Everest. It just looks horrific to try and do that, but I wouldn't mind watching it from a plane somewhere.
You should definitely come down. It's quite beautiful. You might like it.
Well, a friend of mine, Baichung Bhutia, he tells me it's a fantastic place. Baichung said he's been there. Steve Constantine said it's great. Gary Phillips said it was great as well. Everyone I know who's been there said it's good. I tried to sign Baichung when I was in Singapore because I thought, what a good player. But I couldn't afford his wages. So, and he was honest. I found out later that the wages he told me he was on them, and I couldn't match them in Singapore. So Indian football did pay well at some time.
So now we'll move on to another topic. Okay, you have been in many positions in respect to football: manager, assistant manager, technical director, advisor, pundit. Which job profile do you personally prefer? Which is the most exciting?
Well, the best thing in the world is playing. That was the best, being a footballer. Waking up, knowing that your job was, to play football, your job to train. There's nothing to compare with that. Though, I wish I was a better player. That was the reality. I wasn't a great player. And I was at the level where I was playing for my mortgage. So I wasn't playing for a £200,000 a week. I was paying to pay the house off. So you had to play. And that meant playing with injuries. So one season I played in Australia where I damaged my shoulder, but I couldn't afford to take any time off because if I'd have lost my contract, I'd lost my appearance money. So I was playing on painkillers for a year, which you're not supposed to do, and it was stupid, but I had no choice. So that's the reality of a pro who's not at the big boy level, and I wasn't. Luckily, I was a bit better at coaching than playing. And coaching has made me reasonably comfortable financially. And so coaching would be the second best. I enjoy the day-to-day relationships with players. I liked the whole idea of, I've always enjoyed that side of football as well. So that was, the easiest, I might add, is being a pundit, because you've got hindsight, and that's easy to be a pundit with hindsight. No one has thrown a bottle at me yet, and it wasn't whiskey in that bottle. It was something else similar colour. I haven't been spat on as a pundit. I haven't been threatened, death threats as a pundit. And if you're wrong, it doesn't really matter. So pundit was great and well paid, I might add. So for pleasure, for coaching, for easy life, my goodness, be a pundit. It's great. But though I worked on the view that I never criticised another coach, because we have enough enemies in administration. I would never be unprofessional and criticise another coach, which used to get some of the producers mad and directors. And I'd say, no, I don't care. I'm not doing it, So I got away with it.
Especially at ESPN, I think you got a lot of controversies. The present one, what's going on?
Yeah, one or two. Yeah. They want you to be controversial, believe me. Yeah.
I see that because in one of our talks we had with, I think, Thomas Gronemark, the Liverpool coach, and it featured on ESPN because he said something about Steve Nicol and it just boomed.
Oh, it can go on. I mean, yeah, you can. And also, you've got to be careful at times, because if you're going live, you've got to be careful what you say, because, you can't swear, you can't do other things. And also, you've got to be careful when you think you're off air, because sometimes you're not off air. The microphone is still on. So I was told, the minute you enter the studio, never say anything that you wouldn't say in front of your mum. And that was the easiest way. That way you're safe. So that's what I tried to work by. And always be nice to the cameraman, because he can make you look ugly or fat. So look after him with a few beers sometimes. He makes you look good.
So, okay, now we'll move on to you as a coach. If you had to describe your team as a coach, which adjective would best suit them?
Well, I like to think my teams are organised, because my view is, if you can't organise your team, you can't play, you can't coach, because it's chaos. And and I'll be honest, I've had sessions that were awful, and I found that sometimes sessions I did with national team players, international players, was a disaster if I did the same session with under 15 kids. So there's no one ideal, but I would like to say any team I had was organised. It was hard to beat because I worked on the view that you've got to defend first, because you're always going to get a chance to score in football. You might get only one, but if you can take that one, you might win 1-0. But if you're letting 3 or 4 goals in, you're not going to score 5 all the time. So I found it was easier to organise defences, then work on what flows, and also very important with set pieces, because 40% of goals come from set pieces. So I would work on defending set pieces, because you can reduce you there, and making sure people are responsible for their jobs, and also having well organised set pieces. There's nothing more annoying than a free kick that goes over the bar, or a corner that goes behind the goal. I mean, it makes me mad when I hear people go, "Ooh, just missed." Just missed is rubbish. The hardest shot in the world that goes over the bar is rubbish. If it goes on target, it's got a chance. It might be a small chance, but the keeper might drop it and you follow it in. So you've got to work on your percentages. You've got to hit the target. You've got to make the keeper work. You never know, the keeper might be bent. And you know, in Nepal, as well as anywhere else, some games are fixed. And some of these goalkeepers are quite flexible in their ethics or morals, we should say. So get the ball on target, you've got a chance. Even helps the bent keepers.
Okay, if you had to prefer, if you're setting out your team, which one would you prefer, man marking or zonal marking?
I much prefer man marking, because it means you can't cheat. You can't say it was his man, not mine. And also, there's a famous phrase I heard someone say: "Space doesn't score. Man scores." So no one, you never see in the paper Space scored in the 37th minute. It was John Smith scored. Renedy Singh scored. Baichung Bhutia. So my view is, I want you to be marking Baichung Bhutia. I want you to be marking Renedy Singh. I want you to be holding their shirt, standing on their toes. I want you to be responsible for that player. Then there's no argument. And if he scores and he's better than you, hey, no problem. That's the real world. Because some footballers are. I mean, who would want a man-for-man Maradona? Nobody. But if you're doing your job and you do it properly, then that's all I can ask for. If you do it the best you can, that's all I can ask for. So I've got no problems with that. But I don't like people, giving away responsibility.
So, if you're setting out your team, what would be a go-to formation?
Well, I had the most success in terms of winning, and my bank managers told me that as well, that in Singapore. And I played a 3-4-1-2. I was very lucky, because, and let's be quite blunt, good coaches, there's no such thing as a good coach. A good coach is someone who's got good players, because players make you as a coach. You might be able to improve players, but if you've got good players, you've got a good chance of being a good coach. Pep, Klopp, great players, they're great coaches. I'm not saying they wouldn't be lower down either, but they wouldn't have the same results if they were playing with Stoke, or Halifax and things like this. So we've got to be honest. I like the 3-4-1-2, and the one was the fella playing behind the front two, a free player. I had a Brazilian who could play. He could see things. My view was, if you couldn't knock the door down, he found a way of picking the lock. He saw things that other players didn't see. And I once had a committee man, and I'm not a big fan of committee men, not a big fan of administrators. They tend to talk rubbish. And this fellow said to me, "Oh, he's too slow." I said, "Look, if he was fast, you wouldn't be watching him out on this pitch right now. You'd be watching him on TV in Europe." Because that was the only reason this lad didn't play in Europe. He didn't have the pace. He was a bit slow physically. He worked hard, he trained hard, he just wasn't quick. And you've got to be quick at the highest level. There's no doubt. There's no arguments anymore. The slow player doesn't exist. So I like 3-4-1-2. I like the three at the back, where the two centre-backs were like dogs, like assassins, who marked people. And I often tried to have a really intelligent player as my sweeper, who could bring the ball out from the back. And I was lucky there in Singapore. I had a fellow called Adi Iskander, who played over 100 games for Singapore, and he used to bring the ball out from the back, and we were suddenly almost in midfield, in possession, which is really great. So that was my favourite. But I find it's in a way I was lucky that I didn't have any fullbacks in that club, so I couldn't play back four. Now I went to other clubs and I had fullbacks and not wing backs, so I played with a back four. So when I was in the Singapore team, I played with two wide boys who were magnificent athletes. They go up and back. One was a Thai called Suri Suksomkit. One was a Singaporean, Azabaksin, and they were up and down, up and down. I went to my next club in Perak in Malaysia. I tried to play the same system, the 3-4-1-2, but my two wide boys, one could get forward but couldn't get back, and the other one could get back but couldn't get forward. So it was so lopsided. So in the end, I made them both fullbacks, and I played 4-4-2, and they were comfortable with that because that's what I had. So if I could choose 3-4-1-2, but I try and put the shape of the team based around the quality of the player I have.
So you have managed both at the national level as well as the club level. Which one do you prefer?
It's difficult because you love the day-to-day atmosphere, but you get more problems, and you get more abuse from fans. Especially in India. And it's a non-stop. It's 24/7 job. It really is. It's work every single day. You go to the shops, and people tell you, your dentist tells you what team to pick when you're sitting in the dentist chair. That happened to me, and I agreed with him. I would have picked any player he said because he was my dentist. So you have that element. It's fun, but hard work. National team is probably a bit easier in terms of your time because you have days off, and going to work is often just watching a game, which is a wonderful way to go to work, is to watch a game. But then again, you do have more pressure because you have the nation behind you or against you, and you do have it's a political job because you're dealing with FIFA, AFC, and there is politics involved. Anyone who tells you that there's no politics in football isn't involved in professional football, because there is. There's politics in the dressing room, politics at state level, politics at pro level, politics at international level. So, but I enjoyed both. I mean, and I've got to be honest, my last game in terms of a national team was with Laos, and we played Korea. They had Son Heung-min, who was playing for Spurs. They had Ki, who was playing for Newcastle. They had 5 in the Bundesliga team. So, what a fantastic team to play against. And Son Heung-min was a different class, believe me. We tried to kick him on the halfway line because I thought if we could kick him on the halfway line, not near our goal because he could have scored from the free kick, he might want to go off because he's playing for Spurs at the weekend. I thought that was our plan. Didn't work. The lad who tried to kick him couldn't get within 10 yards. So, that didn't work. And also as a chance, I was very lucky. When I was coaching Thailand, we obviously had Asian Cup where we played Jordan, Kuwait, all these players, Lebanon. So I got to travel Asia, which is fantastic. But also we played against Liverpool. So I got the team of my dreams, who I would have given anything to play for, anything to coach. I got to coach against Liverpool, and we drew 1-1. So it was fantastic atmosphere because I was born in Anfield. I went to Anfield Road School. Liverpool was my life. And to actually coach against them, and we got a draw, which was, it was fantastic. I love every part of that. It's my job. I'm a professional. I'm getting paid, but you still love it sometimes. Some of the love goes out of it. I've got to be honest. You've got to love the game first to become a pro. I think you can't just do it because you've got to have the passion and the love, and then if you're lucky, you go on to become a professional.
So, okay, on that note, do you have any coach or coaches from whom you take inspiration?
Oh, without a doubt, the man that influenced me by an arm and a leg was Bill Shankly, Liverpool. I was lucky enough to meet him, and people say don't meet your heroes. In this case, it was wrong. He was outstanding. He was just like you see on the film, on the TV. He was wonderful, and plus, he revolutionised the whole city. He started Liverpool. And you listen to him now, everything he says is wonderful. And his statue, I don't know if you've been to Anfield, if you get a chance to go, the big statue outside the Kop of him, and it just says underneath, he made the people happy. And that's what he did. And he was wonderful. But I studied a lot coaching mainly because I wasn't a great player. So I realized you had to study. And I really found a Russian coach called Lobanovsky, who was really good, way ahead of his time. And I liked Arrigo Sacchi from Milan, how he worked. Sacchi wasn't a great player, which appealed to me because I thought, I wasn't a great player. He wasn't, but he achieved fantastic things. He got to the World Cup final, as a coach as well. But the Milan team was, and I saw him work. I went to Milan, I saw him work, I saw Capello work, and fantastic. It's a pleasure to watch them work. In terms of recent times, I actually think Klopp has done a wonderful job. He did a great job at Mainz, then Dortmund, then Liverpool, so it can't be luck. He's obviously got something. You listen to him, he's the nearest I've seen since Shankly. Because I don't think he's a con man. I don't think he's making it up. I think he's genuinely sincere in what he does, the way he speaks and how he is. And I think he has a love of the game and a passion for the game. And I'm sure they will be given the league championship because they absolutely deserved it.
So, with so much experience under your belt, do you have any advice for young coaches who are starting out?
Yeah, win. Because if you win, you keep your job. And if you lose, you're not a coach very long. Now, whether that be right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's a reality. Now, I'm talking about professional level. If you're working with kids, it's different. If you're working with youth development, your job should be help the player, help him become better. That's different. And your results shouldn't matter. Sadly, some young coaches are judged by their committee men on the results of their youth team, which is irrelevant really because, it shouldn't matter. The youth team should be getting players into the first team. But that's the first thing, win. Let's be honest. If you're looking at going abroad, my view would be you've got to adapt to the culture. You've got to listen to people, listen to the local knowledge, and adapt. Because it doesn't matter what I do in England or Germany or Brazil, because it doesn't apply in Nepal, it doesn't apply in India or Laos, and every one of them is different. What doesn't apply in Thailand might apply in Nepal, whatever. Like in Thailand, the most important thing was, it's called face. You don't embarrass somebody, anybody. That was important. In Malaysia, you don't embarrass somebody or talk to someone who's older than you. It was a hierarchical society. So there was lots of different things I learned by local knowledge. And I used to try and always get a local as an assistant. Sometimes they were the president's spy. Welcome to the real world of coaching. And I don't blame them. One bloke told me the first day, Coach, I'm sorry, I'm your assistant, but I'm also got a spy on you. But he said, don't worry, I'll say nice things. And I understood city for the next 20 years. I was going to be in that city for the next 2 years at the most. So I understood his situation. So, and he was a good coach, there was no problem. So I'd do that. Again, if you're thinking of going abroad, learn the language. You're not going to be fluent. If I went to Nepal, I would not be fluent. There's no problem. The biggest problem for me would be I'm getting older, harder to learn the language. When you're younger, it's easier. And also, if I'm correct, the script, the writing in Nepal would be totally illegible to me, as it was in Thailand, as it was in China. In Malaysia, I could read it. In Vietnam, I could read. So I had a chance. So I could start to read books. But I always worked on starting off with hello, how are you, thank you, please. Just being polite to people. That opens a door right away. And then starting to look at football terms. Like in Thailand, there was ying was shoot, beep was press. So you started to get simple football words, which suddenly applied, and the players found it easier. And it's also like a matter of respect. You're a guest in the country. You've got to have the right, you can't impose your culture on the country. And the best advice I was given was, be like bamboo. Now, there's not much bamboo in Liverpool, so I had no idea what he meant, this bloke, when he told me. And he said basically was, when you come to a country, to foreign country, start to be able to bend. Bend a little bit this way, that way. Don't snap, because it's hard to snap bamboo. You don't do that. He says, just bend. And then just realise that, what applies here doesn't apply there. Probably the best example I had an international striker in Malaysia, and he rang me up one day. He said, Coach, I can't come training. And I said, why? What's wrong? Are you sick? Are you injured? He said, oh, no. He says, I've got to go shopping with my mum. And I said, what are you talking about? You can't go. You're an international footballer. I pay your wages. We've got a game coming up at the weekend, a big game. Well, they're all big games, no matter what, you learn that. He said, Coach, you can find me, you can drop me, but my mum says I'm going shopping because my dad's not well. I've got to take her. And that was it. And I suddenly learned that no matter what I did, it's had more power than me. So I had to learn to be flexible. And I couldn't drop him because I knew, because he scores goals. And the next game, he still scored. So you have to work it out that way. So you've got to really do that. On a non-abroad level, if you're working just like a young coach in Nepal who's going to stay in Nepal, obvious things, simple. Work hard. It's a hard-working job. Like you do anything, try and be the best you can be. Study. Look at different things. Listen to podcasts. Read books. There was no internet in my time, so I read books. So that was the important thing. Now you've got access to some fantastic coaches around the world. Get into YouTube, it's free. Look at the session, listen to people, listen to podcasts. You don't have to agree with them. You might look at a session and say, that's rubbish. Well, okay, that's fine. I've got no problem with that. And I don't mind if it's mine. You can say it's rubbish. But have a look and then adapt and see how you can work from what you've seen. It's important. And then work out what's best for you, what works for you in your city. You might be in a small village where you've only got one set of goalposts maybe, or you've only got 3 balls and 25 kids. A bit different to when I've been with the national team and I've got everything. So look at the situations and try and adapt to what you've got there. In general, coach people, don't coach players. If you coach them as people, you'll then be able to coach them as a player. If you can't get through to them as a person, you won't be able to get through as a player. You won't get through to every player because it's the real world. Some players will hate you. Some players, I don't like myself. I didn't like them. You'll still pick them because if they're good players, you'll pick them. That's your job. But there's times when you're not going to like people, and you're not going to. Other times you think, oh, wonderful players. And I've found the higher I've gone, the nicer the people are. I work with people like Bryan Robson, Peter Reid, Nikolas Anelka, top level players, internationals. Great people, good blokes you'd like to sit there and have a beer with, have a meal, share a meal with. Really nice people. So I've found that way. But you've got to work with people as a coach. And it was also well described to me that you walk in a dressing room, 11 people think you're a genius because they're playing that day. 5 are not sure because they're on the bench. And if there's 5 more in the squad, they think you're stupid because you've dropped them. So you've got to remember that. Players only love you when they're playing for you. And so that was the most important thing. And the final thing is, I wish you luck, because there is luck in football, good and bad luck. Some people say that you make your own luck. No, there's not. You can have your leg broken as a player. That's bad luck. It does happen. You can't stop it sometimes. You can do an ACL. I've seen great players' careers ruined by ACL injuries. I've seen good coaches' careers ruined by match fixing. And you can't control that. It's out of your control. So I wish anyone who's going to try, good luck. Enjoy it. It's a great job. And thank you for your time.
So Steve, on that note, I'll ask you one final question. Whom do you prefer, Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo?
Neither. Diego Maradona.
Okay.
Because Diego's different.
I'll make it more personal for you. Whom do you prefer, Sadio Mane or Mohamed Salah?
Roberto Firmino. because without them, without Roberto Firmino, those two. I actually, to be honest, I've watched them both closely. Salah, to an extent, it sounds wrong. He cheats. He'll stand still and do nothing for a few minutes, and he'll find space, and suddenly he'll explode, and he'll do frightening things. Mane, and I mean this is also in the nicest possible way, I don't think he knows what he's doing, and therefore you can't mark him because he's all over the place. Whereas Salah you can mark. Firmino's intelligent, he drops off, he links in, but Mane is so hard to mark because I don't think he knows what he's doing. He just does things. And that's not an insult. That's just like, when I said before Diego, because he played on pitches that were awful. He was assassinated every game by thugs. Whereas Messi, who I think is fantastic as well, he plays on carpets, and the referees, if you blow on Messi, you get a free kick. Messi and Ronaldo, wonderful players, both of them.
So Steve, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have all the luck as you mentioned in your future endeavors, and I hope you get to act in more Bollywood movies.
Yes, that would be my dream. I'll be the big B. I'd like to be by the big B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers, anytime. Thank you. Bye-bye.